That's which. Yeah, there you go.
It's this one. You gotta
this
hook
guy.
the horns.
Yeah, I'm not going to do this. Hey guys, Friday, last word, presented by Crispin Commentary, and the boss. The boss is here checking on us this week. Hey, Robbie, how are you, man?
I thought Bruce Springsteen was here. I'm good, man. I'm hoping for a UT victory tonight. We were talking about it offline. I'm an alum. Christy's in Austin. She's wearing a burnt orange today.
And we have another
Texas
distinguished
big underdog, though.
Another distinguished alum that I'm gonna let in the studio, and then we're gonna kick.
I'm out.
Producer Robbie.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye,
Robbie. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
KP, hook 'em.
Hey, I don't know why it kicked me out, but my flight to Dallas for that Texas game is delayed about an hour and a half. So I'll be at my my kitchen table. So we're good.
Cool. Well, we're live, and KP is joining us, as he always does, in an avatar to begin. Hey, Christy, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
So, guys, we are, it's Friday. It's 1 p.m. Eastern. It's the last word, again, presented by Crispin Commentary. And there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on, notwithstanding the football game that KP's heading to in Dallas. But let's start with just the terrible things that are happening in Los Angeles. And I'm going to request that we stay out of the political aspect of it, because it's just there's too much pain and suffering going on to go down that rabbit hole right now. But and let's try to keep it within the context of what we do right every day, and how these tragic fires are, going to kind of wreak some havoc for a while on our business. KP, you're closest to the scene, right? So maybe give us your man on the street assessment. I know you're not right in LA proper, but you're pretty close.
Yeah, I'll just say, I'm in Orange County, which is south of Los Angeles County, and all this stuff is going down in, all around surrounding LA. The Santa Ana, also known as the devil winds, they blow from inland out towards the Pacific Ocean. They blow west, and they are very strong. And when you have dry conditions, where the last 2 years were wet conditions, growing all the vegetation, now all that vegetation is dry. And I mean, some of these fires, this is being compared to the Camp Fire. It was in Northern California back in 2018. I mean, the fire can jump 3 acres per second. Think that's what they're dealing with. Plus lack of water pressure and all the other stuff. It's just a super challenge, and it's just brutal. I mean, it's brutal. People are, calling me and asking how they can help. What can they do? Sometimes I really hate the app on LinkedIn. I had a video I cut last night, and it was like spot on, and now I got to redo it because it just wouldn't upload. I tried. It's the second time in a row, and I wanted to highlight something. I know a lot of people nationally want to do something. They want to help, and what can I do? And so PRMG has a 501c3 called PRMG Cares, and you guys know we do our art auction every year. There's the founders, Paul and Robert, and then myself and Gary are also owners of the company. Gary Malice, who's Chief Strategy and Capital Markets Officer, and his wife, Andrea, who work for us. They have a son who draws all those original pieces, and they're amazing. He's in Pasadena at the LA School of Art, and he had to evacuate. He's close to the Eaton Fire, which is just destroying Altadena, which is a city next to Pasadena. And what we decided last night was we're gonna do another auction, but it's not an auction, it's just straight donations. But anyone can just donate right to a fund if they wanted to. But we're gonna provide a couple links that we think are good. We haven't picked them yet, but just stay tuned. We're gonna put something out, but we're gonna sweeten the pot. We're gonna give 3 prizes away for top donors. So in 100% of funds go straight to the donation. So we don't ever break anything off the top, but we want to sweeten it. We want it to offer and entice people. So Grand prize is an original piece. We think a painting from Caleb, who has evacuated down to his parents' home in Orange County. So we want to give our top donor an oil painting that we think that any company or person would be thrilled to have. I don't know what it looks like yet. There was all this inspiration hitting yesterday. Second place, we're going to give away row 9 Lakers tickets, a pair of tickets, and we'll work it out. And then third place, we're going to throw in 2 bottles of Dom Perignon. So we're going to sweeten the pot for the top 3 donors, and we're going to try and rally our industry, because there's people all over the country that they're doom scrolling, they're seeing the videos, it's horrific, and we want to do something. We want to rally our industry, and so we raise 10,000, 20,000, anything above that, it's all good. I know there's a lot of people that want to help. I've been fielding calls and emails and messages, so we're going to try and be a focal point and rally the industry.
Hey,
I just dropped a link to PRMG Cares in the chat for everybody as well.
Hey, KP, I'll donate a piece of art that I think many of you know that I do art on the side. I refuse to sell it. I just give it away to people. So I will donate a piece. I will make something special for this, a watercolor, and you can give it to one of the donors.
Heck yeah. Love that. Thank you.
I had Caleb did a piece of work for me maybe 4 years ago, I think it was now. So I think a lot of people know my oldest son has been playing baseball, at all kinds of different levels, professionally as well. And there was when he was in the minor leagues with the Pittsburgh Pirates, these minor league teams always do these crazy games with different uniforms, and they did like a Marvel theme, and he was in like a Spider-Man uniform. And I think I might have posted a picture of it, and Gary Malice saw the picture and he's like, "Oh my God, this would be awesome. Caleb would love to draw this." So I actually commissioned Caleb to do a painting, and it's like three different images of Cam in like a Michigan State uniform, and then this Spider-Man uniform that looked like pajamas. It was amazing. So guys, Caleb's
so cool.
The real deal. He is the real deal.
One of our tech partners goes all the way back to our first Magnus days, a gentleman named Brett Johnson, who lives in Puerto Rico. He put Caleb up in his house for a week, and Caleb painted this incredible mural, commissioned to paint it on his wall. I mean, he's very talented, and he's personally affected by this fire. And he's such, him and Cammie, his sister, who's babysat our kids, they're such a good family. And there are many families that are hurting right now. And it's just brutal down there. My construction partners, who see my videos when I do my little side hustle, they live in Malibu Canyon. So if anyone's familiar with the area, Pacific Palisades is by Topanga Canyon, and Temescal Canyon Road is right there. And this fire is creeping on the map west up the shoreline and uncontained. And if you've ever driven up PCH to Malibu, I just took my partners to dinner at Moon Shadows, completely lost that restaurant. Duke's, I think, is hanging in there. And Pepperdine University is right there. And Malibu Canyon Road goes up behind Pepperdine, and in the very base of the canyon is a road called Piuma. And my construction partner is my good friend from the University of Texas, Jason. They live right there at Piuma and Malibu Canyon. They had to evacuate. They're just allowed to go back in their house today, and they're trying to grab as much stuff as they can, and then head out to Rancho Mirage and crash with their parents and in-laws, for like a week and see what happens. And just pray the fire doesn't destroy their home, And one of my loan officers has a cousin who completely lost their home 2 days ago. I have a fellow co-owner from Picasso who owns a house at an 8th unit in Malibu. She liked the area so much, she moved from Vegas literally 2.5 weeks ago, rented a house in Pacific Palisades, right on the cliff, and has all of her stuff all moved in, completely burned to the ground. She had 35 minutes to pack her shit up. The police officer would not let her. She had to rent a car that morning, Tuesday morning. The police officer would not let her go up the hill half a mile and just load up a truck. So she ran down the hill, got to the police officer, ran back up the hill half a mile, loaded up her golden doodle and 2 suitcases with rollers. And that was it, her entire life belongings, and completely lost. So I personally put her at my house. I have a condo in Rancho Mirage. I said, she can stay there for a month. And if she needs longer, get stable. So I personally put up someone I'd never met. I went a chance to meet her yesterday. really nice lady. And it's just devastating. And there's just thousands and thousands of stories. There's, hundreds, thousands of people evacuated. There's looting. It's just crazy right now. It's an absolute nightmare. It's the worst fire in our state's history, the worst windstorm we've had in 10 years. And I know we deal with, straight line storms and hurricanes, and we deal with stuff all the time. And so, we want to make it a mission in 2025 to help out as many of these natural disasters as we can with PRMG Care.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point that it's so bad, and the estimates are somewhere between 20 and 50 billion. I think they've said 2,000 properties have burned to the ground and are completely destroyed, with a number that are also damaged and may or may not be able to be lived in. And these are horrific numbers. And as we think about, what happened with Hurricane Helene and others, with so many people that are out of their homes, we're in a business where we impact people's lives. And I often talk about the difference in, when I ask somebody for something up front, it's much easier to get it than once they've packed up everything they own plus their goldfish, and they're waiting to move. When a natural disaster like this happens and people's houses are taken away, all their life belongings, they're in a position where they need a lot of additional help, and they have to navigate what to do because the mortgage document didn't burn up with their house.
Right.
And the coverages, depending on your policy, could be very, very different. It's not like your mortgage payment stops because the house burned down. You still have to continue to pay that, or it has an impact on your credit. And then what about a place to live, and how does that impact your job? And so there's these far-reaching tentacles when something like this happens. And I think that we need to think about, how do we create a resource for people to understand and ask questions about what this looks like? Because let's assume an ideal picture in a bleak way. So your house is burned down completely. You have found somewhere else to live. Your insurance is supposed to cover those additional living expenses. Do they cover all of them? What about your existing mortgage? Do they only cover the difference between those two things? What does that coverage look like in reality? And what are your out-of-pocket expenses going to look like? And then let's just assume that your insurance will actually cover the repayment and rebuilding of this home. It's not like they write you a check and you go get a contractor tomorrow and decide what you want to build and build your new dream house. There are a lot of restrictions around, because you have a mortgage on it. There are actually a lot of restrictions around how you can rebuild it. That check gets made out to the mortgage company and to you. And then because it is collateral against the loan, there are policies and processes that have to go through to protect the ultimate bondholder. And navigating that is not easy when you're not living in your house, and you're also going to not have all your documentation handy, right? I think this is where we have an opportunity, in addition to the great work, KP, that your fundraiser is going to do for folks to help out financially. There's also a long process. There's a tail that's going to be here for helping folks actually get their lives back to what's more of a normal state. And I think as an industry, we've got to step up for those that were impacted by Helene, those that are impacted by these fires and any other natural disasters, to really help them understand what that process looks like and how do we make that easier for them in a time that's very, very stressful.
Yeah, but as you both know, prior to doing what I do today at FinLocker, I was, in your world, that primary mortgage origination space, and I was really on the TPO side. And when these things would happen, the thing that happens right along with the actual tragedy and the impact that the people that are impacted are having is you have this downstream effect of impacting other transactions in the same kind of location, right? So my ask of our audience, especially originators who may be sitting in the Midwest like I am, not having to deal with this type of issue, not having to deal with hurricane type things. Yes, if you're trying to do a loan transaction in LA County and the homes that you're either refinancing or your customer is working on purchasing is not directly impacted, you're going to have some delays. And I would ask our industry to have a little patience, especially those of us who are outside of the immediate impacted area, because I remember in my past life that the kicking and screaming and pounding on the table, this isn't fair that we're delaying this. Oh yeah, you were there with me, Christy, so you know exactly.
I know exactly how you.
You were pounding on her table.
Oh, it wasn't me, man. I swear.
But it's easy. It's, we think about, everybody's attention span right now is focused on what's happening in California. And, a few months ago, it was focused on what was happening in Helene. But how many people on a day-to-day basis think about those folks in North Carolina that still have no place to live?
Right. And
are still struggling for daily necessities and are still going through this. And the same thing will happen with California. The next thing will happen, and that will distract people from their attention. And this is going to go on for a long period of time.
I will just reiterate, this is going to exacerbate the insurance crisis.
Yes.
And as you know, I'm on the California Mortgage Banker Association board of directors, and for the last year and a half, that's been our number one issue, is the insurance crisis. And we'll be back in Sacramento again in April for March for legislative days, and it's just brutal. This is not political, but this state put a cap on insurance premiums after the Camp Fire, and State Farm pulled out as the biggest insurer, which overloaded farmers and all the other insurance. So farmers pulled out, and they're not allowed to use their own catastrophe modeling to set their pricing. Farmers has even come back to state and said, we'll come back into the state. We had a mild year last year for loss. And if you let us use our catastrophe modeling, we'll come back into the state for all but, say, 30 counties. And the state won't budge. And so there is a graphic that went out that showed all the policies that have been canceled or not renewed in the cities that are directly impacted by these 5-6 fires. And there's like 1,800 policies in Pacific Palisades alone, where all the insurers either did not renew. So a lot of these homes are uninsured. And so
severely underinsured, depending on the, because you have the California Fair Plan, right?
Yep.
Which I know it's not apples to apples in terms of coverage. One of the things I just read this morning, and I wish I could find it to kind of go specifically, but specifically with that Fair Plan, in terms of the estimated loss of homes that are covered under Fair Plan, somewhere around $5-ish billion is what they're estimating. And the reinsurance that sits across the entire Fair Plan is like $2.9 billion.
Yes, I saw that. I saw that same statistic. And what happens when they run out of money?
Right.
Is that
newsflash? We're out of money.
Well, the plan in theory has let's call it $2 to $3 billion, but they're going to need, let's say, I'm going to guess that it's going to be at least twice that.
Yeah.
When you look at the numbers that Jamie Dimon shared from Chase, he's saying north of $50 billion in terms of losses from these fires, and the insurance is not going to cover all of this. So this is going to have a massive impact on people's lives in an environment where we're already stretched.
We have an amazing audience of experts. So thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that.
Jennifer, you had, and if you guys aren't following Jennifer and reading a lot of the stuff that she puts out some amazing things. She has a really good post on this California wildfire and the insurance. I'm going to call it an epidemic, the insurance epidemic. I encourage you to go look at that.
I'm going to drop Jennifer's profile in the chat. People need to go follow Jennifer.
And thank you, Jennifer, for those comments. Yeah, the Fair Plan is the state-run plan. One of the things that the California MBA achieved last year is we said, look, at a minimum, people are calling and waiting on hold for 2 hours to talk to them. You got to beef up your staff. So we got them to beef up their staff and their customer service staff at the Fair Plan, just to give basic service, And so it was a small win, but this poor lady that just lost the house she was in, that she'd been in for 2 weeks. She had a quote for renter's insurance in her inbox, and she was trying to finalize it even as of Tuesday morning. And she was kind of going back and forth with them on the pricing and this and that. So that night, her house was completely devastated. She had no insurance. Lily, she was crying on the phone. Her grandfather's money clip that was a keepsake when he passed away, was gone. Just, her medicine in the fridge. Just what do you grab when you got, 5 minutes to load up 2 suitcases?
Right.
And so it's just brutal. It is, and this is not done. I mean, there's looters out there. They caught a looter from some just so like out here and even in Orange County, they have these like Chilean gangs, these organized cartels.
They're in Novi, Michigan too.
It's unbelievable. Like this guy had a blowtorch and was going around setting houses on fire, and he was caught with a torch, like a giant gas canister connected to a torch. I mean, it's not. How do 5 or 6 fires pop up at once? This is not natural, and so it's brutal. It's tough. We haven't even seen the videos. For those that are watching on TV, when they're sticking a camera in the face of people who are going and seeing the devastation for the first time and crying their eyes out, like we're going to see just countless videos like that. And it's, and so insurance is one part of it. When you're trying to rebuild, I can tell you firsthand from Culver City, which is like the south part of Los Angeles County. Thank God for now, we don't have any fire risk. Getting permitting is a nightmare normally. If you're dealing with the Coastal Commission, forget about it. It'll take years just to get a permit. So in some of these places in Pacific Palisades, it's tough. This is a very tough situation that will be lingering. I remember when I lived in South Florida and both Wilma and Katrina hit Fort Lauderdale, Broward County back to back. There was roof damage. There were blue tarps on roofs for 2 years. That's just the roof, just the roof getting repaired. And so this is going to be around a while. This is a big deal.
No, and I would love it if as an industry that we took this as an opportunity to look at how we could improve the process for insurance claims and for, I'm expecting that we're probably going to see some things out of Washington that talk about what we have to do from a loss mitt standpoint for loans that are covered. But in California, we know a lot of those loans aren't going to be GSE or Ginnie loans. They're going to be more of the PLS market. And so what's going to happen to those folks? What happens to the credit? What happens to jobs? This is an opportunity for us to step in and say, this is how we want our industry to be shaped. And this is how we want to treat people when they go through something like this that's obviously completely out of their control and completely devastating, because many people that are impacted won't be able to go to work tomorrow.
Right.
And they won't have, may not have an income. And we know from the savings rate that not a lot of people can go many months, many weeks without their paycheck and the burden of additional expenses. So an opportunity for us to come together as an industry to step up to really care for the folks that we serve.
So I hate just like shifting gears because it seems cold, but there's other stuff going on, right, in our industry. Again, from our little world here on The Last Word, our thoughts, our prayers, are to everybody impacted and anybody that's there, that's on the ground helping. Thank you. So we had some other news, right, this week. I think maybe yesterday I saw this, or the night before, maybe one of the first 2025 casualties of the mortgage industry. We had Ally Bank announce they were effectively fully exiting, the mortgage industry. I'll say from their seat, it was just a channel. I don't know that they were really fully in the business per se, but there are some decisions starting to be made by, companies, large companies, especially depository type companies to exit the space. And I'm not going to name names, but there's at least one or two other, names that we know in our business that are contemplating similar strategies or being forced to. And just, I think that's going to be also a sign of things here in the winter season of our business going forward.
Brian, I've seen a couple of smaller regional type banks that have decided to move back into only their footprint. That, so you're seeing some shifts in the business. And I tried to look up the numbers to see how many people did or didn't renew their licenses. And obviously it's early. We're still in, just 10 days into January, and some people renew late. But we had, I think the numbers were 330 or so thousand LOs last year. And according to Google, which is obviously the arbitrator of all things true and right and just in the world, they said only 100,000 people renewed their NMLS licenses. Now, I think that's probably low, but let's just say that it's 100,000 people didn't renew. That's a third of our industry from an LO perspective that is gone, which is a massive seismic shift in the business.
Yeah. I would. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was just going to say, it's that time of year, so we're finalizing our pro forma, our budget, and things of that sort. So when we look at our company, when we look at our total addressable market, we tend to look at loan officers, and we've kind of narrowed it down to loan officers that are in IMBs and or in the broker channel. And so one of the data points, thank you to Dr. Rick Rock for sharing your analysis, was the number of loan officers in IMBs and in the broker channel that renewed as of Jan 1 that did at least $200,000 a month last year. I think the range was 200K to 500K. So call it 2 million to 6 million in total volume in 2024. And so that population is like 68,000 loan officers, right? So I know that's a subset of the total, but year over year, I think that population on a comparative basis was down by like 15 or 18,000 originators.
That's huge.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're a capacity model in this business. So with less originator capacity for those that are left, it's going to be a bigger win. As volume comes back in the spring purchase season, naturally, this time of year is seasonally slow. Although we're projecting up year over year, and I would say a lot of it has to do with capacity and being a 3-channel lender. Yeah. Banks are going to bank. That's why I prefer credit unions like UFCU. Love it. I'm just making some conjecture here on Ally. They're really deep in the credit card business and also car financing. Yeah, and my guess is those losses are mounting in those channels. And so they're like, all right, we need capital to preserve for that. So, like they're, whatever, 9th, 10th, 15th stream of business, maybe 30th stream of business, little old mortgage, probably not the best place to be in if they're trying to make sure that they can shore up their balance sheet. That's just pure conjecture, but that's a lot of what banks deal with. They have so many different streams of business that need to be capitalized. And credit card default is the highest it's been since the global financial crisis. The write-offs are huge. Yes. And people are paying 25% interest rate on credit cards right now. And so until the Fed starts cutting again, those rates aren't going to come down. And we had this super strong jobs report, likely the last super beat that we'll see of the year, now that we start to get into that seasonal slowdown where people start laying off. Remember that December jobs report is second half of November and first half of December, seasonal hiring. And so that will start to die down as we, ebb our way into Q1. So, there definitely a lot going on. And yeah, every company has to make the decisions, even tech companies like FinLocker, you got to, strategize, like who's my customer base, who's my target, how much is out there, who's left.
Right.
But even if we have a $2 trillion year this year, it'll feel much bigger because there's a lot less of us.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I think we tend to hear more, sadly, on the negative side, but there is that upside for those of us that are still here that continue to fight through this and not just survive but thrive. I do think we're, those of us that are here will see it. We'll feel and see a better year over year. Last minute, right? We're at the witching hour. Any last thoughts here as we wrap up this week's last word, guys?
So go ahead, KP.
I was just air kissing my wife goodbye. She turns 43 tomorrow, and she was leaving. I'm not going to see her until tomorrow.
Happy birthday, Rebecca.
Yeah. I think we're seeing the highest 10-year yield in a year, and it's disheartening because everyone's transacting right now in the moment. But gaining all this knowledge that we have, that we get on these calls, it's good because when your consumers bring up something like tariffs or jobs or rates, if they bring something up, you better have a nugget of knowledge to give to them to come across as a trusted advisor. So you don't need to be, I know a lot of people are like, why do I look at all this data? Just do loans. Well, if you're doing loans, the consumer that's remotely educated and they have some pushback against you, you better have an answer. And so, there are some tailwinds coming up with some favorable comps on the inflation that were really high. Remember, they spiked in Q1 last year, and those large, January, February, and March, those large numbers are going to be coming off, replaced by lower numbers. So we should see core PCE come down starting in February when the January report comes out. And I still think labor is going to soften. So it just takes time for higher interest rates from the Fed to work to the system. So hang in there, keep grinding, keep pushing, keep talking to consumers, set them up, get them ready. There's a lot of pent up demand. People want houses, and that people need a roof over their head.
Love that.
I agree. It's the effort that you put in now to build your pipeline and build your database and make sure that you stay in touch with them with valuable information, because the market is moving very quickly. Things are happening, and being able to pass along that education and being that trusted source, as you mentioned, KP, is invaluable when you can build today for what is the future. It's short-sighted to focus on only what's going to close in the next 30, 60, or even 90 days. A lot of the relationships, we're kind of going back to that era where people aren't just closing immediately, that you're building for 6, 12, 9 months from now. So continue to do that and continue to get stronger. Build the relationships within your community, within the loan officer community, within the lending community. Learn and grow. I think we're going to see some changes that come from Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie that will impact our business. And it behooves all of us to really know and understand what those guideline changes are going to be and how they're going to impact our borrowers and where we should be advocating differently. This year, if the industry continues to contract and the numbers, let's assume that Google is right, the numbers continue to contract with the people that are left in the industry, each of us is going to need to continue to step up and sharpen and focus our A game and be better for those that we serve.
That is the last word right there. Thank you, Christy. Thank you, KP. KP, safe travels. Hook 'em. Looking forward to seeing you guys.
Thank you, Crispin commentary.
I know. Well, and Jody's not on here to talk about Ohio. She's definitely betting on Ohio. So next week we'll see who was.
We'll see who comes wearing the colors next week.
I'm gonna go brave the snow and ice in Dallas in a few hours. So, see
you guys in Austin at the IMB in a couple weeks.
Yeah. And we'll be back on next Friday.
See y'all.
All right. Bye, guys.